previously I was superintendent in Norton City Schools, and when our students left in May, and when they came back in August, we saw about an 11% decline in enrollment. So I called some neighboring superintendents and said, hey, we've experienced this huge decline in enrollment. What's going on in your school system? Well, Wise County, the story was the same. Dickinson County, the story was the same. Tazewell County, the story was the same. And so what had happened is a couple of coal mines had closed the previous year, and then we just had a mass exodus of folks. Well, whenever you build a budget, you build that budget based on what you think enrollment is going to be. And nobody, you always, when you're living in an area like Southwest Virginia, especially the coal fields, you always anticipate a small decline in enrollment. But when you start talking about 10%, 11%, even 14% in one county, there's no way to plan for that. And then after your budget's already set, there's no way that you can deal with it afterwards. And so about 7 superintendents there in the coalfield region got together and said, we've got to come up with a solution for dealing with this enrollment loss. And prior to 2009, in the recession, the state actually had a line item for school budgets called enrollment loss. And so we started talking to legislators about the issues that we were having with enrollment loss, trying to get some of that money reinstated. And some folks from Southside heard that we were having those conversations. Well, the folks in Southside had the same problem. And so we started what was called at that time the Coalfield Coalition. And Southside superintendents joined in with us, and we had some success lobbying folks in Richmond that year, and we got some enrollment loss money put back into the state budget. And I guess based upon that success of just a few little Southwest Virginia school divisions coming together and working together, Southside joining in with us, we decided that we were going to expand the following year, and we started the Small and Rural Schools Coalition, and we now have 71 of 133 school divisions in the Commonwealth of Virginia who are part of our coalition. That year, they put $7 million into the budget that was split across many school divisions who had experienced enrollment loss. They kept it in this current budget cycle, so some school divisions are getting it again this year. However, in the second year of the biennium, that enrollment loss line item is no longer there. So that's one of the things that our coalition is currently working on, is to get that the enrollment loss as a permanent fixture in the state budget. Recently, we're approved by the National Rural Education Association as the official Virginia affiliate. We are currently in the process of writing our bylaws. We look to have those ratified in November when we come together for a meeting, and so at that point we will officially be the affiliate for the National Rural Education Association. So we won't only advocate for things at the state level, but also at the national level as well. Some of our priorities for this upcoming legislative cycle, as I've mentioned already, we want to be sure that enrollment loss is part of the state budget on an annual basis, but also school construction. School facility issues are urban, suburban, and rural. However, it's very easy to see as you go through rural school divisions that we have more than our fair share of schools that need to be either renovated or replaced. And so one of the things that we're trying to advocate for is just like the enrollment loss prior to the recession, there was a line item for school construction dollars that every school division received. For example, in Bristol, we used to get over $400,000 every year that we could use for capital, whether it's construction, renovations, replacing roofs, and that was state money. We've not received that since 2009. I'm not very good in math, but I can tell you over the last 10 years, if we would have had $400,000 additional in our budget, our schools probably would be in better shape than they currently are. At-risk add-on is probably the biggest area that we're advocating for. Currently Virginia has a cap of 14% additional state dollars for every student that receives free or reduced price lunch. The national average is 29%. And so that is again, just like with crumbling schools, rural school divisions also have more than their fair share of students who live in poverty. And so, that's one way that we hope that we can have more equitable funding from the state, is to get that at-risk add-on cap increased, something closer to the national average than where we are currently at 14. Because, like I said, for every student that we have on free or reduced price lunch, depending on what your poverty rate is in your area, you get somewhere between 1% and 14% more in state dollars. Well, that's great and we appreciate it, but we'd like to see that cap moved up to 18 or 20. And so we'll work again. We almost got that approved last budget cycle at the last moment. That line item got shifted over into the lottery, which is more beneficial for some suburban areas, and it helps us too, just not as much as the at-risk add-on. So we'll be advocating hard to get the at-risk add-on cap increased. We're currently looking at a school construction project, and we also have received estimates on renovating our buildings. It's about the cost estimates are about 3 times as much to renovate the old buildings, because you have to bring them up to current codes. Right. And we're talking about 1938 buildings, 1948 buildings. One of our buildings was built in 1916. And so you can imagine the cost it would have to, they're not handicap accessible. We have asbestos issues, we've got radon issues, moisture, air quality issues. And so really, you always know that it's going to cost a little bit more to renovate than it will to build new. But for us, the estimates are 3 times greater to renovate than it would be to build new. Really, I believe, and Senator Stanley from Franklin County has asked for an Attorney General's opinion on this. I believe it's a civil rights issue, because our students with the most challenges are going to our school facilities that are in the worst condition. Right. So our poorest students, they go to our not our worst schools, mind you, right, but our facilities that are in the worst conditions. Right. Our minority students, those are the schools that they're going to as well. Our students with special ed, they can't attend their community school because they're not handicap accessible. So we're busing some of our students who are served under IDEA to another school in another neighborhood, simply because the school that's in their backyard can't meet the needs that they have. We greatly appreciate the forward thinking of the profile of a graduate and the flexibility that it provides. One of the challenges, though, that I think that we're going to have, being in a small community where we've had several businesses close, it's going to be hard to set up those internships and mentorships, because there's not an endless supply of places to send our students to get those internships and mentorships. However, in Region 7, we're used to challenges and struggles. So the superintendents from Pulaski to Lee County have came together, and we've partnered with United Way, and we've got a really unique partnership. They actually received a Go Virginia grant, and United Way is going to work to build bridges between school divisions and manufacturers, industry, businesses, to make sure that our kids get connected to those very important internships. So it's a challenge and it's a struggle, and we'll have to work harder to make it happen. But I do think in the end it'll benefit kids, and if it benefits kids, it'll end up benefiting our community. So we have those conversations, and and everybody agrees that having high school students do internships with manufacturing, industry, business, insurance, the medical field, whatever, is a great idea. But then when it comes right down to placing students in those positions, it's a little bit more difficult, whether it's because of insurance reasons or what have you. And so what I think is good about the partnership that we have with the United Way is they're going to be the middleman that's going to work on what do the schools need to do to make their students more ready to go into these manufacturing internships, and they're going to bridge that gap. But another great thing that the United Way is doing too is they're surveying every high school in our region to find out what credentials and certifications are offered in each school. And at the same time, they're surveying all the employers to find out what credentials and certifications they're looking for their employees. And so we may have, for example, this happened to us in Bristol. We have a manufacturing company here in Bristol who is phenomenal and a great employer, and they want a CPT certification when they're hiring. And we have a manufacturing class at Virginia High School, and we were doing a completely different certification. Well, just because we sit down at the table with human resources from electromechanical, and they said, we would really like to see the CPT certification. So we made the change, and now electromechanical has promised for every student that graduates from Virginia High School with a CPT credential, they're going to hire them directly out of high school. And so I think sometimes it's just a matter of getting schools and businesses sitting at the same table to find out what we have to offer and what their needs are.